I will start with a quick quote from Confucius. Life is really simple, but we insist on making it. And I am really looking forward today to hearing some tips from Yolanda about maybe making things a little less complicated. And I will tell you all, I first met Yolanda, I guess last fall. When I read about her, I happened to see her name in an article, I think in the Spy or in one of our local publications, talking about a local exhibit, and it mentioned collage artist Yolanda Acree. And I went, ooh, I love collage, and reached out to Yolanda, and she taught a wonderful class on landscape collage for us. And we were telling her earlier, it in some ways it's been one of our most successful virtual classes because everybody who participated loved it so much that they kept sending us pictures of what they created. And that's really the sense of community that we hope to put together with RiverArts. And we are super excited to have Yolanda here. I am remembering that Mariah said I should start with a little bit about RiverArts and about our upcoming schedule, and I think I'm going to kick that to the end since I've already launched into Yolanda and who she is and how we know her, and we will just let Yolanda take it from here to talk about mindful simplicity. Actually, before I do that, I did want to say, besides how we know her, I loved reading a little bit about her and the fact that she's not only an artist, but an author. And she's going to tell us about her book today on mindful simplicity. Oh, yes, Laura has a copy already. Yeah. And Laura is in Florida at the moment, in New Smyrna Beach. So she'll have to tell us later if she got that, through an online source or if she picked it up down in Florida. But the other thing that I thought was neat about Yolanda is she's also the founder of Black Minimalists. And I was looking at their website and looking at all the great resources that are put together on wellness and green living and self-care and so much that people can really dig into. It's just a fantastic framework. So now, Yolanda, please take it away and teach us about mindful simplicity.
Thank you. So yes, I am an artist. I'm a writer. I'm also an ESL tutor. And I'm from Caroline County, born and raised on the shore. I've been living simply since 2013. And I started sharing my thoughts and experiences about minimalism and just life in general on my personal blog in 2014. And then in 2017, I founded the Black Minimalist community with 3 other women. We founded that community because there was a lack of representation of Black people in the mainstream minimalist movement. And I wanted to know, who else who has a similar experience to mine is out there living like this. Is the experience different from, what we're seeing in the media? And it was. So I founded that community. And then based on those experiences, I was approached by Callisto Media in 2019 with this concept for a book to talk about mindful simplicity and how to create more balance in our lives and simplify our lives. So I wrote that book, and here we are today to talk about it. So before I get into, I put together about 5 tips or steps to sort of approach mindful living. But before we jump into that, I just wanted to acknowledge that we are living in a pandemic, and we have been for a year now. Oh my goodness. And I feel like this talk is sort of timely because we've all been forced to spend more time in our homes with our immediate families. And I think we've all been sort of confronted with who we are and what we're doing. We've probably, for some of us, we may have spent more time in our personal environments than we have in our whole lives in this past year. And it's always a good idea to take a step back and sort of look at where we've been and where we're going. And at the beginning of the pandemic, it was about April. I think for me, that was sort of the rough month, emotionally and mentally, because it was like in March, it was like, we don't know what's really happening here. Maybe we're just going to be home for 2 weeks and then everything's going to get fine. But then by April, I think it sort of set in for myself, at least, and others, that this was not going to be going away anytime soon. So I published a little post of 3 affirmations, minimalist affirmations that I could use, and also hopefully someone else could use, to help sort of ground you and center you in those difficult times. And that was, I am enough, I have enough, and I do enough. So I just invite you to think about those affirmations and use them for yourself, because I know throughout this past year, I have definitely had to remind myself of those things at different times. And I also wanted to say that given the difficult times that we are in, but also thinking about living more mindfully and simply, wherever you are now in your journey is okay. Don't feel the need to compare yourself to others. And certainly don't think that your journey to mindfulness or simplicity has to look like someone else's. It's unique to you. And we're all starting at different places. But yeah, I just wanted to, take a moment to acknowledge that this time that we're in has sort of made us all reflect more and look more internally. And I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. All right, let me take a sip. So let's get into these sort of tips/steps to sort of living more mindfully. And I will be sharing some of my personal story with you as I give these tips. So the first 2 are really mental and emotional tips. They're all about mindset, how to get in the right mindset to simplify your life. So 1 is find your why, and 2 is identify your priorities. So I think before you start anything, you need to know why you're doing this. And I think that's important to being successful on any endeavor, project, journey. Why are you doing this? Now, when I started this journey, I did not find my why. I was in my late 20s, and my life was normal by all accounts. There was nothing wrong, but I didn't feel great. I didn't feel motivated. I wasn't content with my life. So I thought, maybe let me try to start over. Now, I don't recommend this to everyone. At the time, I was single, I wasn't married, I didn't have any children. I liked my job, but I wasn't married to that either. I didn't have any major responsibilities. So the idea of starting over wasn't a big deal for me. I had, the resources to do so. So I did the process backwards. I sort of got rid of the stuff first. And along the way, I sort of discovered why I had this urge, why I felt unsettled and unmotivated in my life, and discovered my values in the process. So finding your why is really all about your values. What is it that's most important to you? For me, those values that I was seeking, that I didn't know I was seeking, were freedom, independence, adventure, creativity. Those were the things that were missing from my life, but I didn't understand them at the time because I was just going through the routine of a normal life and not making that space to sort of examine what was going on. So I ended up, getting rid of probably about 90% of my possessions. I moved back to the shore. I was living in DC at the time. Moved back with my mom, which is probably something people would not want to do, but it was okay for me. I moved back home, got rid of my possessions, and I also decided that I was going to leave the work that I was doing. So it worked out for me. But whenever I talk about this and write about this, I encourage others to think about why you are doing this first. Why now? What are your values? Establish those things first before jumping into this process. All right, now on to part 2, identifying your priorities. Once you know your values, then you sort of have to take a look at your life. So in the book, I break up our lives into many categories: finances, career, home life, home, family, shopping, diet. These are all the categories that are in the book. Your categories may break down differently, but you need to think about those values and then look at each of those areas and identify what are the priorities in those areas. So going back to my example, I knew I was going to resign from my position. Earning money is a priority. I still had expenses to take care of, student loans to worry about. So I knew that even though I wanted more independence, financial independence, to be self-employed one day, that was the goal. I knew I had to find a way to still earn a living, but do so intentionally. So I made a promise to myself, I wouldn't work full-time for anyone again, but I would seek out, part-time opportunities, flexible opportunities, where I could still cover my expenses, but also explore those values that I was seeking: creativity, adventure, but also, sorry, I lost my train of thought. That's a side effect of pregnancy. But also fulfill that need to earn a living. And that's what I did. So when you think about a priority, it's like, what do I need? What's the minimum that I need to still, meet these priorities, but still be able to explore these things that are meaningful to me and bring value into my life? So I put together some sort of questions in this section for you all to think about. What are the needs that absolutely have to be met? What are the things that are non-negotiable? What are your hopes and dreams? Like, what do you actually want for your life? What are your goals, and what are like your absolute no's, like things you definitely don't ever want to do again or at all? And also remember that you are a priority. I feel like a lot of times when we're thinking about our lives, we think about ourselves in relation to others. So our partners or our children, our family members, our coworkers. We think about our lives and how we relate to others, and we base our priorities from that. But I think really acknowledging yourself and what you want first. It's not to say that, you're not going to consider those other people, but acknowledging yourself first and taking care of yourself first should be a priority for you. And one way that I have done that over the years is just doing a lot of journaling and writing. I process my thoughts through writing, and I also bullet journal. I don't know if you all have heard of that, but I have to write everything down. So I choose bullet journaling. Even though I'm an artist, my bullet journal is not as beautiful as some of the ones that you might find on Pinterest. But I have to write everything down to make sense of it. I do simple bullet journaling, which is just making a list. So at the beginning of each week, each month, I make a list of things that I need to accomplish, things that I want to accomplish, things that I need to think about, over this period of time. So I really, identifying your priorities helps you prepare for part 3 or step 3, which is the fun part to me. And that is decluttering. Now, it may not be fun for everyone. I think, going through, books or clothing and, getting rid of the stuff you don't like is probably more fun than combing through your finances. When we talk about decluttering, but there's balance to be found, and if you can, work through your why, your values, identify your priorities, and what you need to be able to move forward in a more balanced and simplified way, then the decluttering is fun because you can easily eliminate the things that don't belong. And I feel like when we talk about decluttering, usually we're talking about physical things, but it's usually married to something that's mental or emotional. So if we're talking about, decluttering our home, then we also have to think about our family life. How do we use the various rooms in our home? How many pieces of flatware, dishes do we need? Working from home, how do we integrate a home office into our home that wasn't previously there? So the physical piece it's never just about getting rid of the things. They always have a connection to, some mental or emotional part of our lives as well. So keep that in mind. And then I want to share sort of a personal story with the decluttering piece to sort of put it in perspective. I know some of you joined a little bit later. I'm currently almost 8 months pregnant, and I did not plan to have a child. This was a surprise for me. I'm 37 years old, almost 38. And I've been living alone for about almost a year now. And like I said, when I moved here, I wasn't intending to be incorporating a child into my life. So this room that I'm sitting in now is my office / guest room. And the rest of my apartment is organized, clutter-free, nice. And if I were to just pan this computer a little bit one way or the other, you would see a mess. All of my collage supplies are on the floor. I have supplies for a baby shower. I bring that up to say that it's not, you will have challenges on this journey. The process is not linear. You're going to have times where you're more aligned and in balance. And there are also going to be times when you're not. And for me, I had to think about, like, why is my office space, my creative space, the messiest place in my house? And, I think it's because creating has been difficult this past year, living in a pandemic, not only creating and finding the motivation when, it's easy to feel sad and depressed about what's happening around us, but also I'm pregnant. And that also affects my motivation and creativity and ability to, give my best to all of the types of work that I do. So that's why my office is messy, because, mentally I'm in a transition period trying to figure out, how to incorporate this new person into my life, into my family life. And this room will eventually become a room for the baby, not immediately. But, when you're thinking about your values, your priorities, and when you're decluttering, it's not just what's happening in the present moment. You also have to think about, what's to come in the future? What do I want to happen in the future? So I do have a plan to get this space organized. But I have to take into all those things into consideration. It's still going to be an office. It's still going to be a guest room. And then eventually it's going to transition into a child's room. So keep that in mind as you're decluttering as well. All right.
Yolanda,
Part 4. Yes.
While we're talking about decluttering, you mentioned physical items, but then also the emotional attachment. And, that's where I run into trouble is how do you handle those things that it's hard to separate the physical from the mental? Do you have a process for, how you figure out what speaks to you most?
Okay. So this is what I always say. If you own a lot of something that you absolutely love, that you use or you visit with regularly, you don't have to get rid of that thing. I am not the type of minimalist who believes, you only need 5 pairs of pants or something like that. I'm the type of minimalist that the things that I love, I have a lot of, which is why I have, if you look in here, it's a lot of art supplies, and I'm not planning on getting rid of any of them because I do use them. But there are other things that aren't as important, like clothing, that are limited because I don't have an attachment to that. Clothing, yes, I like style, but it mainly just serves the purpose of covering my body. So if you love something, keep it. But if you're still torn, I would say for sentimental items in general, find a way to memorialize it or preserve it. Some people will take pictures of an item and then release it. Maybe give it to someone else who may appreciate it more. Also, I always say give it to someone where you can go visit it. So it doesn't live in your home, but you can still go see it every now and then. That's how I handle sentimental things. But for me, I just keep them. Like I have loads of photographs from over the past decades that I basically took from my mom because she doesn't use them or look at them. I'm usually the one asking her where the pictures are. So I have taken on the task of being the collector of photographs and things, and eventually I will pass that on to someone else who wants to take over that. But for now, I'm okay with having, tons and tons of photographs in my closet.
Thank you.
Any other questions? I didn't know if we were gonna stop or I was just gonna talk and then we would go back to questions, but
it always just depends. If you don't mind questions, if anybody has one, they can always just wave their hand and jump in between points. But thank you for taking the time to answer that one.
Sure. Okay. So yeah, if anyone does have any questions, please feel free to put your hand up. Okay. So we've found our why. We have gotten our priorities together. We have decluttered. Now what? Now you have to reorganize. Because when you're decluttering, generally you're taking everything out, you're looking at it, you're sorting through it, you're, taking the things away that you don't need anymore, whether you're donating them, giving them to someone else, recycling them, and then you have to figure out what to do with the stuff that's still there. And when you're reorganizing, you may have to buy things or employ services that help you to do this. So again, minimalism is not about not buying anything. It's about buying things that are functional, that serve a purpose, and that help you make your life more simple. So if that means you need to buy some organizers for the remaining photographs that you have left over to store them, in a way that is presentable, or maybe you need to contact a financial advisor to help you figure out your plan going forward. This is the time where you sort of take everything that you have and put it back together in a way that makes sense for your life going forward. And then that's really it. The final step that I have is how to stick with it and keep going, because that's where things can get tricky. You know, how do you maintain this lifestyle? And I will say that simplifying is not easy at the beginning. It takes a lot of interrogation, personal interrogation. It may take a lot of time depending on how many things you've accumulated over the course of your life or since the last time you've sort of given your, a life overhaul. But, excuse me, but maintaining it over time, it will get easier. So the first thing I want to say is give yourself grace. There are going to be things that may be difficult that you have to confront in this process of letting things go. You're going to encounter things that you didn't know were sentimental, or things that might trigger you emotionally that you're being asked to let go. You may have thought you were one person and discovered through this process that you're someone else. So first of all, give yourself grace to make mistakes, to have setbacks. Over the past 8 years or so, I've had, seasons and months where I wasn't being mindful or living simply. But the key is, even in those periods, I reminded myself that this is temporary, number one. And number two, because I know what my values are and my priorities are, eventually I will get back to it. And I have. And over time, it definitely gets easier to the point where you may not even need to go through this process so often. So in the beginning, when I started out, I think I did like a little mini simplifying decluttering session once per season, while I was still getting rid of the bulk of my things. And then that gradually lessened to, maybe twice a year. And now it's maybe down to once a year. Usually around this time, spring, is when I really do a big, sit down, where am I at and what do I need to get rid of to keep moving forward during the spring, because it's like a second new year, how I think of spring. And, it's getting warm, the flowers are blooming, everything looks new, and it sort of encourages me to do that clean out, both mentally and emotionally and in my physical space. And then sometimes, if necessary, maybe in the fall, I like to do it to get ready for the long winter. So in this process of sticking with it, you need to make a plan for how often you think you gotta revisit these things. And stick to that plan. And like I said, as time goes by, you will need to do those things less. So currently for me, this room is what I'm working on in this season of my life. But also I have to think about clothing. So I don't really know what my body's going to be like after I give birth, and if I will need to perhaps purchase or thrift more clothing in the future. So that's something that's on my mind, but I can't really do anything about that right now. So it's a lesser priority. Also, find help. A friend, a partner, or a professional. In this day and age, there are professional organizers out there who can help you get your life in order. Find someone that can keep you accountable and that you can check in with. Even if it's just a friend, and even if they don't, physically come to your house and help you, maybe you just need them to send you a text reminding you, hey, did you look through your closet like you said you were going to? So find someone to help you. Remind yourself of what you're grateful for. I think that helps us stay focused on what's important. So, you know, whether that's making a gratitude list or just, you know, sitting down and thinking about all that you're thankful for, that definitely will help keep you grounded throughout this process. Journaling, I mentioned that earlier. You know, if it helps you, write about what you're feeling, you're thinking, and also, you know, make your lists if you need to. If that's how you organize your life, make your lists. But I definitely encourage journaling to everyone, whether you're a writer or not, or enjoy writing or not. It's a different biological process in your mind when you write. And I encourage you to write with your hands and a pen and paper. It really, for me, it really helps explore things and expose things that doesn't happen when you're typing or just thinking in your head.
Yolanda, do you mind if I ask, is that also something that you do through your art when you're making art, or do you feel like that's a separate process?
I'm still figuring that out, I think, as an artist. I do explore things that I'm thinking about through my art, but I definitely can't articulate what it is through my art the way I can through writing. But yeah, I think that eventually I still consider myself new on this journey of exploring myself through art and exploring the world around me through art, but it can be.
But of course, writing is another kind of art too.
Yes, it is. That certainly is. But yeah, I would say no. And also the final thing I would really say is, like I said before, know that it does get easier over time. When it feels difficult, just keep that in mind. It will pay off. Minimalism, mindfulness, they're like muscles. You got to exercise them. And the more you do it, the easier it gets, you know, even during challenging times, and the more confident you'll feel in your ability to make the best choices for yourself and your family. All right, so that's all the tips that I have. So we can open it up now.
I have a question for
Yes.
you, Yolanda. Have you kept your journals?
Mm-hmm.
And do you ever go back and read them?
So yes, I have journals from the past few years. I had some journals from high school and college, but I did get rid of those. I don't go back and read them often because sometimes it can just feel very cringy and awkward to see some of the things that we've written in the past. But during this season of my life, I have been reviewing my journals from the past few years. I'm trying to see if I could see that this was coming in my mind. So I have my journals in a stack right next to my bed because I've definitely been looking through them. But I think once I get through this period, I'll probably, you know, let those stack of journals go, you know, and start on a new stack.
The other thing I have found myself, like, I consider myself an aspirational artist. So I take the classes and I'm on your email list because we tried to figure that out. It's because
I think, yes, I remember.
Something, I don't know if that's when we were traveling down here. Anyway, so I think of it in terms of I can do everything, but I can't do it all at once.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, these are these little chapters, and turns out I really do not have to keep every craft supply from every class that I took. And there are people like you who are happy to inherit it because, you know, and I've taken classes again with somebody else that I took before, and she said, well, you already gave me all your paints. And I said, that's okay. You're sharing them with your students, it's getting used. And so that helps. And also just knowing what can be replaced and what can't. I can get another spatula. I don't care how long, you know, whatever.
Right.
And then the ones that can't be, you know, what's going on with me wanting to hold on to that. So that's my 2 cents.
Yes, and I think those are great points. And also when you're thinking about things and people, like people can't be replaced. Things can. So, you know, is it better to go shopping and maybe buy a few things that you really don't need, or spend that time with someone else, or spend that time on a craft that brings you joy? So yeah, it's a good point about what's replaceable and what's not when we think about living mindfully.
Yeah, I really liked what you said about sort of like being okay with if you can't get rid of something, if you're not ready to do that. I've moved up and down the East Coast a lot of times, and I have sort of dragged along a lot of my mother's things. And at some point, several years ago, or even more now, maybe, I had been feeling this like, oh, why am I carrying all this stuff around? It's a pain. It, takes up too much space. And at some point in one of these moves, I thought, you know what? This is my role. I'm the person, nobody else is going to keep, all of my mom's old letters or quilts. And I don't want them to disappear. And so this is my role, and I'm doing this, and that's just how it is. And so to me, that was not decluttering physically, because I still have a lot of, stuff sitting around of my mom's, which, at this point now is like become a historical artifact. And so that adds another layer of like not wanting to get rid of it. But it did declutter my feeling about, what I was living with. And it sort of like, I was able to sort of just let that feeling of guilt or whatever it was, burden, go, and just say, look, I don't want to get rid of this stuff.
Yeah. And the time will come when you'll know what to do with it. Whether maybe it's you want to keep it for yourself and display some of the items, or maybe you want to donate them to your local historical society, or maybe another family member would like to have some of the things. That's one of the things. My grandfather passed away 2 years ago, well, 3 years ago almost now. And, my aunt was the primary caretaker. So she basically inherited all the stuff. But what she has been doing over the past year or two is like maybe every month or every couple of months, she'll send everyone in the family an envelope full of photographs. So now, like, she's not the only person responsible for these things. We all get to share in that. So yeah, it's okay. You don't have to do everything at once. And, you will know when it's time to transition to something else or do something else with them. Just give yourself that grace and space.
Mariah and Yolanda, it helps me to hear both of you and your perspectives on that, because I feel like some of the things that I have a hard time thinking about getting rid of are things that were my grandmother's. So many things that were hers. And my mom is very attached to all the things she has that were her mother's. And we like this huge amount of stuff that was her mother's and my grandmother's. And I want to keep it all, or most of it, but she wants to keep even more than I want to keep. And so then I have this guilt about like, if I even got rid of a few things that grandma made, like, can I keep like just the most special ones? But like, it's hard. And so hearing you both say, one, it's okay to keep stuff, But two, maybe it's okay. Maybe I need to make some, I don't know, rules or have a discussion with my mom, put some parameters on it, figure out what I keep and then don't feel guilty about, and then what I can get rid of and not feel guilty about.
Yeah.
And so I appreciate that, because my other question, I'm sorry I had to step away earlier for a minute, so I don't know if anybody else asked this, but you know how you hear the term buyer's remorse, like you go out and buy something and it's expensive and you get home and you think, oh, I didn't need that. Like I have like giveaway remorse. Like when I give away something, then it's inevitably the thing that, even if it wasn't that important, that I need like 2 weeks later. And we've moved a couple times in the past few years, and we've gotten rid of a lot, and I felt very freeing. And it's not that expensive to replace it a lot of times, but it's like, oh, if only I just had that item or that whole bunch of craft supplies that I didn't need then that I need now. And so I just wasn't sure if anybody else has experienced that. And if you have like a, you know, not a 12-step program, but a quick, you know,
well, not that, but just going back to the first two things we talked about, finding your why and knowing your priorities first before you start giving away stuff.
Right.
So you know what you should give away and what you might want to hold on to a little bit longer.
Right. Yeah, and I think my why was like, we need to have less stuff, and that was about, you know, we're moving, and that was about it. So that's
I did want to touch on that, because I think, you know, when we see like TV shows and, you know, hear about decluttering, they're always mostly focused on the things. But in my opinion, if you just get rid of the stuff without really thinking through what your plan is for your life, you're going to end up accumulating the stuff again. Just getting rid of the stuff doesn't solve your problem. You really have to, you know, investigate and explore your life, yourself, and, you know, what you actually want for it. You got to do the homework first.
That makes sense. Thank you.
Yeah, the priorities are important.
Yes.
Does anybody else have other questions?
I think Carol.
Yes, I was muted, sorry. I'm just curious, you know, I thought you do collage and you're a minimalist, okay?
I am.
I first thought collage doesn't seem very minimalist to me.
Okay.
As you're talking, I'm like, no, it works because it's kind of a repurposing.
Yes, exactly.
Yes, so I answered my own question there, unless I've got it wrong. Do I have it right?
No, you have it right. And that's one of the reasons why I love collage, because it's sustainable. I'm buying used magazines, or somebody's giving me magazines. You know, I go to thrift stores and look for old books and things. All you need is, you know, a magazine, a pair of scissors, glue, and some type of canvas to put your creation on. So for me, it's very sustainable, and it's also very accessible to anyone, which is why I love collage.
Yeah, is canvas that someone would use with acrylics or oil, or?
Oh, when I say canvas, I just mean whatever you're going to put, whatever you're going to paste your project to. So it could be a canvas, could be cardboard, could be just plain paper. Yeah.
Well, the other question I had was, what's different about Black minimalism? Have you got some help for us there?
Yeah, I can give you a brief rundown. For me and our community, what it's about is, given, you know, our history in this country, we are looking at minimalism from the perspective of personal freedom and collective liberation. So how can we sort of divest from some of the practices and policies of our government and society that doesn't benefit us? And how can we, you know, acknowledge ourselves and uplift ourselves when or without relying on a society that doesn't always value our lives? So that's sort of a brief look at why Black minimalists exist. We're not, you know, we do talk about decluttering things and all of that, but it's more of a cultural, historical perspective of sort of decluttering the harmful and damaging history and experiences that we've had in this country, and also reclaiming some of the things that may have been lost. One of the things that we were doing before we sort of took a break was, meeting Black farmers. Working with the land and the soil is something that's really fraught in the Black community. Some people feel a lot of pain when they think about it because, our ancestors were forced to work this land. But the land itself is not the oppressor, I guess, so to speak. And the land provides benefits for all of us. So there are a lot of Black farmers out there who are trying to reclaim that skill. And it's something that, we had before slavery. It just, because of what happened, we lost certain things in our culture.
Getting rid of the negative aspect of it and finding the positive.
Yeah, exactly.
Interesting. Cleansing.
Yes. Rebirth, repurposing, reframing. That's, a part of what Black minimalism is.
You're part of an organization that looks at Black life right now in those terms?
Well, I created an organization along with 3 other women called Black Minimalists.
Okay.
So, it started out with me just looking for other people who are living simply, who are also Black, and sharing their stories, on my personal blog. And then we morphed into its own entity. We created a little book, ebook, where people share their stories of why they chose to become minimalist and what it meant to them to be a Black minimalist. So we sort of started the movement. But as I was sharing earlier, we as an organization aren't active, but there are plenty of Black minimalists that are still out there, who's still coming up, who, reference us. But our purpose was just to provide that space for representation. And, we did that. But maybe one day we'll be active as an organization again.
I know that we're, sorry, go ahead.
To define the problem, it's a good way, I think. Get rid of all of that.
Yolanda, I was going to ask you to put the website for Black Minimalists. I think it's just blackminimalist.net, but I didn't want to get it wrong if anybody wanted to follow through.
Let me, I can put it in the chat.
And then I know we're close on time, but I love having the good conversation. And Carol, I appreciate you asking. And Yolanda, I appreciate your, honest assessment, and for us just to hear about, reclaiming some of these spaces and ideas, and, the community you've created has a lot of great resources.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I know that we are a little bit over our time, and maybe we could save for another conversation, but I was wondering coming into this conversation about the connection, whether there was a connection between Black minimalism and like a scarcity and the sense of having, not been able to have the fruits of the work belong culturally. And so when I didn't know if that was like a point of, like, I was thinking about, for example, my grandmother grew up in the Depression. And so, she saved everything. So I was wondering if there was a tension there between that sort of like impulse to not live in a culture of scarcity and minimalism.
Yes, absolutely. Because we have been denied so many things historically, we have accumulated things in other areas, and not necessarily in the things that are the most valuable to us. We tend to be very we're consumers. We're great consumers when it comes to our American economy. We consume a lot. And I think that practice was born out of feeling denied other things, feeling that we have been denied other things. So we consume things that we have access to, which, like I said, aren't necessarily beneficial to us sometimes. And I think that's something that many people in our community had to confront when they started on this journey. And I think that it's also sort of a point of contention between looking at our elders, the elder generations, and looking at us, because, you know, they did, you know, really endure that scarcity. So for them, it doesn't make any sense to get rid of these things. But, you know, that's, you know, part of what we try to do is to educate and, you know, bring awareness to why, you know, why you feel this way, why you think this way, why we think we need to consume these things, and sort of provide an alternative to that.
Oh, I see that. Thank you, Yolanda, for that answer. And I see that Amber has put something in the chat which says she's interested to learn how minimalism will intersect with having a child, because children complicate everything. So maybe, since we are running out of time, maybe you can just speak briefly to that before we wrap up.
Yeah. So definitely, yes. One of the things that concerned me early on was the amount of stuff that people say babies need. Everyone says babies need. There's lots of things that are marketed towards people having children. And also creating my registry was very, very stressful process. I edited, added things, took things away many times, because I know how to live minimally for myself. I don't yet know how to do this with a child. And that's something I'm still grappling with. I don't have the answer, but I know that it's going to be a challenge. But for me, fortunately, I have a couple of friends who have recently given birth, I would say in the past 18 months. So they are actually giving me a lot of the things that I need. So that's great. So I don't have to necessarily buy everything. And I can try these things out, you know, without having spent money on them to see if they work for my child or not. You know, it's going to be a trial and error process. And one of my friends is planning to adopt in the future. So she actually asked me, and she's a minimalist also, but she actually asked me to give her the things back when I was done using them. So I kind of have an exit plan for some of the stuff that I'm going to accumulate. Emotionally or mentally, I don't know how that's going to work out. I will update you all in the future about that. But, you know, another thing that is on my mind too is that, you know, friends and family members like to give things, and you can't necessarily control what they buy for, you know, your child. So that's something that I'm going to have to figure out the rules on. But really, as I receive things and use them and see what works for me and the child, I will most likely, you know, be donating things. I'll probably go back to a seasonal sort of decluttering schedule, and, you know, giving things away or donating things that we're not using, to keep our environment as minimal as possible.
Yeah.
I
I do remember when I had a baby that I was amazed at actually how I felt also, and was told also, all the stuff that you need. And I discovered really, especially at the beginning, you don't need that much stuff. So
Right. And,
I
I'm
remember
planning,
going through that. Yeah.
and, you make certain choices. So I'm planning to breastfeed. So I won't need as many bottles. I won't need to buy formula. Hopefully everything works out with the breastfeeding process, because I know it can be challenging. And then, I've also planned to use cloth diapering. So at first I'm going to be using disposables, because I know in the beginning I'm just going to be too exhausted to be thinking about cleaning diapers. But eventually, we'll transition to using cloth diapers, and then, maybe when we're out and about, using disposables. So those are little things that I'm thinking about, how we can be more sustainable and minimal, but it's going to be trial and error, like I said.
Well, so Anne is putting some good stuff in the chat.
Yes.
I agree. And maybe we can have like a mom's chat sometime because that is always a fun thing to do. And I know we're so close to 6 o'clock, we're already over our time. And Yolanda, I really want to thank you. I'm so glad that I got to meet you in this way, because I didn't get to take your class when we had it earlier. And I'm glad that everybody came, and it was really, I really enjoyed this conversation. And before we go, I do want to let you guys know some stuff that's coming up. Yolanda is our second literary salon in our literary month of March. And you didn't talk too much about your book, but she does have a book that is available. Laura,
Well, I
who
did.
is no longer here.
Didn't
You mentioned it. You mentioned it.
But trust me, what I discussed with you came from the book as well.
Yeah. So tell us the name again of your book.
Mindful Simplicity. And I did mention about doing the giveaway.
Yeah. Do you want to do that right now?
Yeah. So I'll say it and then you can finish wrapping up. So for the giveaway, I was just going to let you all sort of guess my due date, my estimated due date. So if you want to just pick a date between April 15th and May 15th, and the 2 people who come the closest will get a copy of my book. I'll mail it out to you.
And how should
can you do it in the chat box? Yes, put the dates
absolutely.
in the chat box, and then I'll let Ann know who the people are the 2 people who come the closest. So any date between April 15th and May 15th.
Okay. Great. I hope I win. So we have 3 more literary salons coming up. Next week we have, and is next week, I've got our
Robert Earl Price.
Thank you. That's what I thought. I didn't want to say the wrong one. Robert Earl Price, a wonderful Chestertown poet and luminary. And so I hope that you will all come for that conversation. And we have classes coming up. We have a Pisanki class. We have a paper cutting class this week. We have a class about making paper flowers taught by a student who has made these absolutely beautiful paper bouquets. So I am excited about that one. And we also just yesterday opened up our online flash exhibit, which is called Imperfection. And we had an enormous response to that, and it's on our website, which is community.chestertownriverarts.org. And I encourage you to go and take a look at how everybody responded to the theme of imperfection, which I think is one that we can all maybe relate to, especially this year. And I would also like to encourage you, if you can, and if you feel so inclined, to consider donating to RiverArts, because we do rely on contributions from people to keep going and offering the programs and classes and exhibits that we do. So that's my plea for support from our community. And I think we can wrap up now, unless, Anne, you look like you might have something else to say. No?
No, I'm
okay.
good.
So thank you all for coming. And in the spirit of kind of accepting where we are and being okay with what we have and what we're ready to let go of and not ready to let go of. I guess I would like to make a toast to imperfection because it's on my mind.
Yolanda, thank you for being here. Has everybody guessed who wants to guess so we can reveal your due date and see who our winners are?
Yes, get your dates in. I've chosen them based on the ones that I have.
Okay, Carol, Neiman, Libby, Mark, anybody else? I'm gonna count down. When I get to 1, no more guesses. 5, 4, 3, get it to my fingers, 2. Anybody? Anybody else? Okay, 1. Think we have our guesses.
Okay, so my estimated due date is May 6th. So Carol was the closest with May 14th, but Mariah was second with April 24th. So if you all, maybe Anne.
Yes, I'll make sure
Mariah, you can email me directly. I think you might already have. Just send me your address and I'll pop it in the mail.
Absolutely, thank you.
And Carol Griffin, we'll make sure we've got your email through the sign up. So we'll send you a note, make sure we get your actual snail mail address.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you, Yolanda. It was
You're
a great
welcome.
conversation. I look forward to reading the book.
Oh, wait, Carol Neiman is waving. Carol, you're still muted.
I put May 5th.
Oh, we
I
did
didn't
not.
see
Oh,
I did, yes. So I'm the one that put May 5th.
we
yes,
didn't
you
see
did.
that come through, but that's okay. I am in a
It's
trust.
up here on I sent it to Mariah.
Yeah, I do see it.
Oh,
okay.
okay. Well, then
So
Mariah,
that's both of the Carols then.
that's both of the Carols. I'd say Mariah and I were
All
going to get a book and we'll order one and share it.
Oh, yeah.
Because I was thinking, since we work for RiverArts, Carol Neiman, I'm glad you told us that because that came up in a different spot.
I sent it to Mariah. I thought I was supposed to send it to Mariah. So
that is okay. Well,
You
I'm
did
excited
great.
that both of you will get it.
Thank
And
you.
Yolanda, thank you for being here and for doing this.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
Sorry to
And-
keep you all 15 minutes extra, but it was super interesting.
And congratulations, and hopefully we'll talk before then. But good luck, and I hope that everything goes well with your baby.
Thank you.
very
Thank you so
exciting.
much.
Thank you. And thank you for the generosity of doing the book giveaway. That was really kind.
Oh yeah.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
All
Bye,
right.
ladies.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.